let's play Tucker Carlson.
But first, a major shift in social policy that every American ought to be paying some attention to. Yesterday, Walmart, which is the world's largest retailer, announced that it is now taking sides in the gun debate. The company announced it will no longer sell handgun ammunition in its stores, nor, Walmart says, will it stock common rifle rounds that can be, quote, also used in large capacity clips on military-style weapons. And then the company went even further than that. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon issued a strident statement calling on Congress to ban many semi-automatic rifles that Americans have, as well as to seize firearms from some Americans who have not been convicted of a crime or even charged with anything.
Can you just pause for 1 second?
Sure.
That could very well be that if you don't want to sell those things in your store, then you don't want your competition to be able to have it.
Oh, yeah, no question about that. Of course, well, look, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of that. I mean, look, Walmart has also supported minimum wage increases. And you know how this stuff always is. Of course, the big companies always want to support anything that raises up the barriers of entry.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that would cost the little guy a little bit more. So I'm sure there's something to what you're saying there. And of course, look, I think it's horrific and wrong that anyone would advocate that the state take away weapons from people. But then again, what's the problem really there? The problem is the state. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not some business who's been selling these things for years. And the truth is that it's hard to, look, when you see all of the pressure that the government puts on some of these private companies, it's hard to just blame the companies for kind of going along with their well, look, you've got shootings in Walmart. You've got all of these politicians and these activists who are using some pretty heated rhetoric. Walmart's sitting there we just had this shooting. We've been selling these weapons for a long time. I've heard lots of different left-wing politicians talk about how gun manufacturers should be responsible. You know what I mean? You should be able to sue the gun manufacturers for when someone goes and shoots up a bunch of people, which is, as batshit crazy an idea as I've ever heard. And I've heard some pretty juicy ones. But maybe Walmart's sitting there going oh shit, we might be on the hook for some of this too. So you know what? We're going to get on the woke side right now and go this direction. It sucks to see it happen, but yeah, the problem here is the state, the interference. But I agree with you. It certainly, at the very least, would seem like a conflict of interest for you to be we're going to stop selling this and no one else should be allowed to sell it either, so they can't take this business that we're giving up. But, okay, so disappointing to hear Walmart doing that. But let's let Tucker continue.
For a company that operates primarily in rural America, all of this was a big step. How do rural Americans feel about it? Well, we can only guess at that. There's not a lot of polling going on in Tudot, Montana or Roxbury, Maine. But we do know that in the most expensive parts of New York City and Washington and Los Angeles, all the smart people were deeply impressed. They love Walmart now.
Good for Walmart for doing this. And these are weapons of war.
Maybe what's actually happening here is Walmart is listening to its own customers and listening to the American people who want changes not only in the stores, but in society.
You have business being able to act in a more enlightened and more agile way than government does.
At least Walmart today announced new action, insisting that the status quo is unacceptable.
I was surprised, happily surprised. I think this is a momentous decision, a watershed moment.
So now Walmart is more, quote, enlightened than government is, says liberals. Now that's a fascinating turnaround.
All right, let's pause it right there. That is a fascinating turnaround. Tucker Carlson is actually absolutely right to report that and to say, wow, that is really fascinating. That all of a sudden these liberals who have in many ways disproven their own ideology. Because for years I've heard liberals tell me that all corporations care about is profits and bottom lines. And this is why they've always had no understanding of how markets actually work and the fact that, it's all kind of human beings interacting with each other, and that there's lots of things that can pressure decision making, and there's lots of things that go into decision making other than just strictly bottom line or strictly profits. There's a lot of different things because human beings are complex and they act in complex ways. So that is interesting. There's no question. That's a story there, that all of a sudden everyone's praising Walmart when they've been one of the most demonized companies for about as long as they've been around. Certainly as long as I can remember, Walmart's been demonized by left-wing people, by liberals, for everything they do. Now, that being said, the fact that their side is now contradicting themselves and compromising on their issues doesn't just mean that we go, well, now let's all start contradicting everything that we've believed in, or, like just a basic understanding of economics. And so far, by the way, I'm not against anything Tucker said. I think this is an interesting story and it's worthy of being covered. But here's where he starts to go into Crazyville.
You'll remember, Walmart was the target of coordinated attacks from the left. Progressives used to attack the company for destroying small-town America and for exploiting workers. Walmart hired PR consultants and union busters to push back for years. But the company never really changed the way it does business. And yet somehow the left has mostly stopped attacking them. How'd that happen? Well, part of the answer is that liberals got rich and then lost interest in economics. They adopted identity issues instead. But Walmart, meanwhile, figured out that it could buy immunity from criticism from the left by mouthing left-wing pieties. That's all it takes, really. Sounding woke, and they'll leave you alone. Notice that Walmart plans to sell the remainder of its AR-15 ammunition. So this couldn't really be about saving lives, obviously. It's about the money. It's only about the money. And that's not a surprise. Because
all right, let's pause it right there. So again, that is also a very interesting point. I think a lot of this has been fair to report on so far. That is pretty crazy that they're selling the rest of the ammunition. Now, when he says, the left used to care about economics and then they stopped caring about economics, I don't really think that that's accurate. I think the left still cares about economics. They have all the same terrible economic views that they always had. What the left does that the right doesn't do. There's two things. Number one of the reasons why you have these companies catering to the left, even when that's not most of their base, is that the left is fanatical in a way that the right isn't. And this is what it is. We've talked about this before. Look, I can have Ben Burgess on my podcast. I can have a member of the Democratic Socialists for America on the podcast. It's not a problem. Nobody's worried about anything. Nobody's like, oh, we need security here. No, nobody's going to come do anything. How about Milo? If we try to have him on a podcast, Milo is objectively not as radical to the right as Ben Burgess is to the left, but crazy left-wingers are trying to fucking genuinely assault people. So you got to be prepared for a whole thing there. Now, you saw this when you had Alabama institute that 8-week abortion rule. Right? Can't have the heartbeat law or whatever. You can't have an abortion after 8 weeks. They're getting boycotted and Hollywood's talking about all these different things and different people aren't going to go there. Maybe it was Georgia who's had, they were saying they weren't going to film The Walking Dead there anymore. All these different things. But New York instituted you can get an abortion until your kid's 5 rule. And there's nothing. There's no real pushback there from them. So you get a tremendous amount of pushback on one side, next to nothing on the other. I don't know. Did you see any video of this? It was in Montreal. They opened a Chick-fil-A.
Nice.
There's fucking protests all around it. It's like this huge fucking thing over chicken sandwiches, over a goddamn chicken sandwich. They protest it like it's the Vietnam War. It's insane. So yeah, of course people are a little bit more concerned to cater to that group because they're the ones putting all the pressure on. Now, what the solution is to that, I don't know, but that's clearly a big part of this dynamic, okay?
Start a store called Fuck You, We're Delicious.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, there is something, and this is something that I've been talking about for years now, and this is why, cultural issues do kind of matter. You have to acknowledge this. But the left never gave up on economics. I mean, they just had this whole climate change summit. They've pushed crazier and crazier on their economic views than they've ever been. They still believe all of that. Here's the truth about the left-wing economics. They've won. They've won. This is part of the reason why they don't have to push it that hard anymore, because they've fucking won. And the smart ones are aware that pushing these economics any further left will actually destroy the host that the parasite is eating off of. So they're like, yeah, we better not do that anymore. Left-wing economics are spending $4 trillion a year out of a centralized federal bureaucracy. How much more left-wing could it get? We've got I think 7 or 8 of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto enacted in our society. They've won. They've won that issue. But they also understand that they're going after the culture, because in a lot of ways, that's more effective, and it's more important. And it's a if you want to radically transform society, going after the culture is way more effective. Like if somebody on the right is over here going, I think we should reduce top marginal tax rates, and that will actually, lead to more revenue and more economic growth. And then someone over here on the left goes, there's no such thing as boys and girls. Who's really radically transforming society more? Like, what's the point of even talking about this one? They're literally going after the very basis of things. And there's no question, the left has been fighting a cultural fight for quite a while now. And a lot of people who are maybe libertarians, maybe right-wingers, I'm sure some of you have noticed this. Like, I've certainly noticed this, that I could say, I think we should, abolish the IRS and end the Fed. And it doesn't get nearly as much pushback. It's not nearly as controversial an issue as me just saying I'm pro-life. Just going, I don't think we should kill babies, and framing it as killing babies gets you way more pushback than any of this other stuff will. Now, in truth, actually ending the Fed or ending the IRS would do a lot more in terms of actually radically changing our society. You know what I mean? Than just me saying I'm pro-life. However, that's not where they're having the fight. The fight's taking place on the cultural front. So there's something to that, but it's not that they abandoned economic issues because they got rich. They got the economic issues that they wanted in place and got rich off of that. It's an important distinction. All right, let's keep playing from Tucker.
Money at stake. By revenue, Walmart is the largest company in the world. The Walton family is the richest family in America. Collectively, they're worth more than $150 billion. How'd they get so rich? Well, by selling foreign goods to domestic consumers. Cheap Chinese garbage manufactured offshore in factories that pay slave wages, wages that American manufacturers could never match. According to one study from 2001 to 2013, America actually lost 400,000 jobs thanks to Walmart's reliance on Chinese imports. And it shows. Here's what many American towns look like today thanks to Walmart. Here are some of the gleaming new cities that the communist Chinese government built with the profits.
Can we stop for 1 second?
Yeah, let's pause it.
So, there's two pieces of insanity here.
I think there might be more than that, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think if we ranked our pieces of insanity, I bet these two are going to be on the top of the list. First one is the idea that jobs are lost when people are saving money. Just read economics 1 lesson. So people are consuming the same goods for less money. That means that they have more income to spend elsewhere. So the fact that we've lost these really probably the worst jobs that you can have in all of society, of the manufacturing jobs, and then to go, well, we just lost those jobs, nothing's been gained here, you're missing part of the picture. Now, the next thing that I say is the biggest glaring hole in his analysis is that state-funded cities that are probably empty buildings and usage of steel and a lack of resources in China in what's an entirely fictional economy that will most likely crumble way before ours because they literally invest. They have ghost towns. Go Google China ghost towns. They've built these massive infrastructures that are empty because they have their weird policies of the amount of construction that needs to happen. So they just build shit for no reason.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about all of that stuff. But there's just some more that I would add into.
But did I get the two biggest ones?
I don't know. I don't know. I think they're big. I don't know if they're the two biggest ones. The one that really stands out to me is that he says Walmart got rich by selling cheap Chinese crap. Anybody ever been to a Walmart? You ever been to one? They sell a lot of stuff. Pretty big products that they move are food and clothing.
Yeah.
So you want to just say, oh, it's like this cheap crap. Who could care? I have never understood, and this is what the left has done forever with Walmart, and it drives me crazy. I know I've mentioned this many times on the show, but if you claim to care about the people living in these rural towns, okay, what Walmart has done, this is just objective fact, is go into these areas, into these poor rural areas, and cut the prices for what people have to pay on clothes and food. Do you see no benefit to that? Okay, maybe there's some cost associated with it too. I'm fine to have that conversation. But you're telling me you can't see a benefit in that. Listen, Walmart did not put these other companies out of business. This is a fact. Their customers did. Their customers chose Walmart over these other businesses. Now, you can say that's because China was making it for cheaper than we can make it. Well, yes, that's absolutely true. And I agree with you. Go read economics in one lesson. This is not a negative. This is not a negative. We were already doing this with each other. Okay? China just came in and outcompeted for that
specialization.
Area. Yes, this is nothing. This is actually making us richer. Now, I'm not saying those areas are fine, but the other thing is what you're saying when you point it. This is like pure propaganda. Absolutely pure propaganda to take a picture of an empty parking lot in rural America and then compare it to the most futuristic looking city in China. While we're doing this, why don't we go rural for rural? Let's look at rural America versus rural China. See who's poorer there. See who's actually this is just insane to go like Walmart, rich China. Look, they took all this stuff from us. And that's why they have all of this stuff. Look, here's what happened in America that's really had a terrible effect on rural America. Okay. So over when I don't have these numbers exact on hand, but I'm really close on these numbers. Okay. The day that the financial crash hit in 2008, the Federal Reserve had, I believe, in the like $850 billion on their asset sheet.
Nothing.
Okay, that's what they had around there.
Bunkus.
What the day Donald Trump took the presidency, it was over $4 trillion. This is what we did for the decade after the financial recession. We flooded the market with liquidity. They flooded the market. It was the best time of everyone who owned shit started making tons and tons of money. And if you were on the outside, you were just paying the expenses of it. Now, not to say that people got poorer. Some of them actually did a little bit better, but they didn't see any of the gains, or they didn't see the majority of the gains that the people who were, you know what I mean, like in the coastal elites and things like that. All right. This has done a lot to fuck up. And when you look at when we really destroyed the savings, we completely disincentivized people from saving. And that's why, by the way, when you see those studies that are like, oh, it's like average Americans have like nothing saved. They have nothing put away for a rainy day or next to nothing. These things are connected. And so there's a lot of things that happened that really fucked over rural America. But the idea that Walmart did it to them, Walmart went in there and destroyed them with their cheap, competitively priced products that people preferred and therefore went to Walmart instead. I mean, it's like, it's a voluntary choice that these customers made to go to Walmart, okay? Walmart, it's like if somebody took your girlfriend away from you and like she left you and went to go be with somebody else, and you just look at it and you went, well, this guy just destroyed a relationship. It's like, well, yeah, but I mean, he created one also. And judging by the fact that this woman voluntarily left you and went to him, probably created a better relationship. So that's what they did with their customers.
Think she's a bitch.
Yeah, no, she's a whore. But the point is, that's her. She's the customers. That's who you're mad at,
right?
Is those hoary Walmart customers. All right, you're not mad at big dick Walmart. Walmart just came around with his big dick in his nice car and was like, "What's up? You townies want to fuck?" All right, so that's Walmart in a nutshell. But I just think this is it's not only it didn't only veer into the economically illiterate, but actually into straight up propaganda. If you're gonna show pictures of fucking China's super cities or whatever they're building, which, but as you pointed out before, they have their own problem with misallocating resources and building up bubbles and things like that. But the idea that you would just show this empty parking lot and then China's super city and go, see, look what they took from us. Look what Walmart gave to China. Look, man.
They can't even breathe in those fucking cities. Yeah. No, you literally got to stay indoors. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's back to the climate change part.
Right.
They're pretty big polluters. All right, let's play the rest of Tucker.
Don't you wish we had that? We don't. At times, Walmart sold goods at a loss just long enough to drive American competitors out of business completely. Smaller retail and the jobs they provided just vanished. In many places, Walmart became one of the few remaining employers. As of today, more than 1.5 million Americans at any one time work at Walmart, and it's not, by and large, an improvement over what we had before, and it's not getting better. In 2005, for example, 20% of Walmart employees worked part-time at the company. Today, the majority work part-time. Why? You know why. If Walmart keeps employees' hours low enough, it can avoid paying them benefits. People can't really live like that, and Walmart knows it. But they know the federal government, that is to say you, taxpayers, will subsidize their low wages with welfare benefits. In other words, you are working so that the Walton family won't have to pay their employees enough to live. That's happening right now, but we're not talking about it because Walmart is now pushing gun control. So take 3 steps back and let's think about what's happening here. The company more responsible than any other company for destroying and degrading rural America, for making our towns uglier and cheaper and poorer, the same people who push the appalling lie that brightly colored plastic crap from China is going to make us happy, that company is now lecturing normal Americans, the very Americans they have hurt, about how immoral they are for daring to protect themselves with firearms. That's what they're saying. And everyone in Washington, New York, and Los Angeles is applauding them as they do it. It's not a good sign.
All right. So, I listen, I am sympathetic to Tucker's point that that they're kind of, you know, with this gun control stuff, like mocking the people who are their biggest customers. It certainly rubs me the wrong way. It rubs me the wrong way when I see all those, you know, anchors like praising Walmart all of a sudden. But look, let's get real here. Walmart didn't destroy any areas. This stuff, I mean, I don't actually have the data in front of me, but I know that it's like Thomas DiLorenzo did a great job of actually going through all the data of all of these companies, all the robber baron companies in the late 1800s, who everybody says they were lowering the prices just enough to get their you know, competitors out of the marketplace, and this like predatory pricing thing. And you actually go through it and you realize they actually just always had lower than market rate prices. And even though some of them did have some plans of like, oh, we'll get everyone else out of there and then we'll raise our prices up, anytime they try to raise the prices up, they're immediately undercut and they have to bring the prices back down. The truth is, anybody who shops at Walmart, anybody at any point knows
price whores.
They're always very competitively priced, or they're the cheapest game in town by far. That's the idea of Walmart. That's always been their business model and always will. And if they ran you know, sold at a loss for a certain amount of time to try to gain the upper hand, it's like, yeah, welcome to business, bitch. That's what everybody does. What do you think these huge blowout sales are all over the place? People cut prices to try to draw more people into them and then hope they stick around to pay the regular prices. It's just like to blame that. First off, if Walmart was selling products at a loss and they're not making profits, explain to me how that's ripping their customers off? Those are the people we're talking about, that we care about, right? It's the rural Americans who are shopping at Walmart. So what? They were selling them a sale at a loss? Sounds like a pretty good deal for the consumer, if you ask me. Now, this other thing that I hate, which actually drives me crazy, is that like, you go, so you're doing this whole segment demonizing Walmart. And then you go, Walmart knows as long as the federal government is paying these benefits to people that they can get away with paying them less. Well, even if that's true, which I'm not so sure it is, even if that's true, it would make more sense to demonize the government for giving out this welfare to these people. If basically what your argument is, and I'm not saying I completely agree with this, but your argument is that without these welfare payments, Walmart would have to pay a higher wage because people wouldn't work for these wages. Well, then really you should do, when Tucker goes, you know, you're working to subsidize these Walmart workers. It's like, okay, well, Walmart's not forcing you to work to subsidize anybody. Walmart can't force you to work. All Walmart can do is give you some of that sweet Chinese crap for a real cheap price. Okay? So that's what Walmart's doing. And if you have a problem with the welfare, then sure, I'm with you. But let's demonize the government, not Walmart, for doing it. And the other thing he says in there that really, this just really bothers me, is the idea that he says, everybody promised you that brightly colored, cheap Chinese crap would make us happier. It hasn't. This is such a caricature of an argument that nobody's ever made. Has anybody actually ever said cheap Chinese goods will make you happy? That this will lead to a fulfilled life? I mean, if you were to ask me what I think will bring some type of meaning and deep happiness to somebody's life. I mean, look, just being honest. And what the fuck do I know? I'm just one guy. I'm in my 30s. I don't have I'm not some elder statesman with all this wisdom to impart. But I would say meaningful relationships. For me, it's really been marriage, having a child, but meaningful friendships, a career that means something to you, living with a sense of morality and values, having some purpose in your life, living for things that are bigger than just yourself. In Rob's case, it would be sandwiches.
And
but
kicking
no one
AIDS.
said, yeah.
That was really...
Well, and jumping over hurdles in general, but AIDS is a pretty big hurdle.
Yeah,
Once you clear AIDS, you're like, the rest of the hurdles,
my biggest
they
accomplishment
seem
yet.
strong. They seem low, I should say. Yeah, no, I'm with you. But seriously, I mean, obviously there's more important things in life than cheap consumer goods. However, that being said, cheap consumer goods do improve the standard of living, and they improve people's economic situation. I mean, how the hell else do you improve the economic situation other than more plentiful goods for a lower price? And, Tucker, the truth is, right, your real beef isn't with Walmart. Like I said before, listen, if Walmart went into a rural area and went around to the other mom and pop shops with, little private armies and said, hey, we're shutting you guys down, and then started throwing Molotov cocktails through their windows or shooting people or threatening them unless they got the hell out of town, then I think you would have your beef would be with Walmart. You'd be like, Walmart went around and destroyed the economy of this town. But Walmart just opened up shop, and all those people who you claim to care about chose those cheap, brightly colored Chinese crap, as you call it, okay? So your beef is with those people. Now, if you want to make a pitch to those people and go, hey, stop buying this cheap Chinese crap, everything will work better, good luck, you can try it. But the truth is that people like cheap consumer goods. That's what they like. Okay? Now, I'm not even saying that's perfect. I think people have some kind of messed up priorities with some of this stuff. I've said before, and I've heard people give me shit for it, but when you look at those the studies we were talking about before where they go, all these Americans, they can't put together $600 for an emergency, and they got kids and stuff. It's like, well, if you have kids and you can't put together $600 for an emergency, I'm just saying, how many pairs of sneakers do you have? How many televisions do you have? Do you have a whole bunch of unnecessary luxury items in your fucking home? Because if you're actually living in a situation where you have children and you can't put $600 together, you shouldn't have television. You shouldn't have an air conditioner. You should be doing you should have one pair of sneakers. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's crazy. This is just speaking as a father. You should have your priorities in order. And a lot of people don't. And a lot of people do prioritize material things over more important things, in my opinion, like family, relationships, responsibility. But let's get real and look at what's causing those problems. Tucker really cares. I know he's talked about this a lot on his show, and I sympathize with him. He really cares about the fact that young people are finding it more and more difficult and unachievable to get married, to buy a house, to do all these things. Well, what's causing those problems? Sure as fuck ain't cheap Chinese goods. It's the state. Why the hell is the price of housing so expensive? Why is the price of daycare so expensive? Why do we even need daycare? Why do we need two incomes in order to support what one used to? Why is the price of college so expensive? Why is the price of medical care so expensive? This is all because of state intervention. So to demonize one company who comes in, provides a bunch of employment, and cuts costs for really important things for the poorest Americans is so fucking ass backward, man. You're blaming the company that's done something to help. I don't know. This seems crazy to me, and just really, really misguided. So there is a problem. I'm not saying there isn't a problem, but it's not Walmart's fault. So you got to look at people a lot more powerful than Walmart.